We can't go a week without checking in with Joe Messina because he does something for us. He scours the deepest, darkest crevices for stories you won't hear anywhere else and might not want to. But anyway, he brings them here to us. Joe Messina, welcome back to the show. Good to have you.
Well, thanks for having me back. Yeah, I have to go looking for them. Why shouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Well, I guess it's the bizarre, it's the freak show of what's happening out there that, with all the manufactured crises all the time and all the actual crises and scandals going on around the world, some of these stories that really do shape our culture, we might not even realize are happening. One that you mentioned this week is the girl who was asked to leave a restaurant because of scars. Have we really become so intolerant and so obsessed with perfection that this is where we are?
I don't. You know what? I had this discussion on my show yesterday. One of the questions that was asked in my chat room was, I don't know how bad the girl looked. We haven't seen the picture yet, and she really, frankly, she didn't look that bad. But somebody said to me, if her face was really swollen, kind of bloody, or the red, is it really someplace to bring a young child? Now, I'm not saying I agree with that line of thinking. But it was a question asked. But where's our compassion, right? Where is our compassion when it comes to little children, especially?
Well, and I mean, as a mother of a child with special needs, um, you know, I guess I see mothers with children with special needs sometimes. I'll see them alone, trying to take their child maybe for an afternoon at a restaurant or at a mall, and maybe it's a child who has a drooling issue or worse. And I always think, there but for the grace of God. I mean, I think that when we've come to a place where people are so shallow and so completely narcissistic that we're going to think it's okay to eliminate someone based on their physical traits, something that they really
Yeah,
can't control at that time.
that was wrong. Yeah.
I just think we've come to a really sad place. And so I guess
hmm
that's what bothered me the most about it.
No, I agree with you. And I would, if I was the employee there, I probably would have looked at the person complaining and saying, we have outside tables if this bothers you that much.
Yeah, exactly. And I have seen people in restaurants. I'm one of these people that really can't eat when things bother me that I see. Just certain things bother me. Sometimes it's just more about, the kind of people that are there and how they never discipline their children. And that can make me physically ill. And I will choose to either leave on my own, not look at them, say something to them, or maybe just count it as this is God telling me maybe I didn't really need to eat that meal anyway.
Yeah, yeah. But
Not going to kill me.
you have a big purse. Go ahead and put a roll of duct tape in there. When they get out of control, just duct tape your kids to the table.
Exactly. Well, I find it interesting, Joe, because you and I talk every week about how systematically the politically correct tribe are explaining to us why God needs to be eliminated from each and every component of life. And yet, when Pew Research this week did a poll, they discovered that most people can tolerate just about any kind of in-laws except one. Do tell.
Oh, I think this is great, and this is not hatred towards a certain group of people. Most families, when it comes to the inner circle, they're willing to let just about anybody in and anybody, marry or get in relationships with their sons and their daughters and what have you. But the one that stood out were atheists. It seems whether people are Christians or Jews or what have you, most of them are not really keen on letting an atheist into the family. Now, I got to thinking about this, and I asked some of my friends that are Christians and some that are Jews, and I said, we love atheists. We don't have a problem with atheists as a person, but allowing an atheist to date my daughter or my son, all of a sudden, you bring somebody into the inner circle that has, where do they get their moral foundation? Where do they decide how to treat my daughter, how to treat my son? It really throws a wrench into things for people.
This is interesting, Joe, because this is really something that you and I both have written about extensively. My book, of course, ladies and gentlemen, why the revival of our republic depends on revival of survival, depends on a revival of honor, because it's not me imposing my morality on people. It's me
No.
asking people, what moral wheelhouse are you going to go into to decide what's right and wrong so that you can act appropriately in an ordered society? If you can't have laws, you can't have the rule of law, you can't have the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, or the Bible, then what exactly? It's just what you think. And this is the problem I ran into when I did ABC's Wife Swap. As you know, I went and he was an atheist, and I wasn't allowed to talk about historical documents, politics, or religion. Well, I don't know how you argue with atheism and, oh, by the way, polygamy when you can't discuss those items. And so it became super apparent to me that the question I love to ask people who make these sorts of claims is, what would you like to base our behavior on? Or can we just all kill each other? Is that okay? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I'm with you. I mean, as far as my daughter goes, I've got 2 girls. I don't want a guy whose moral foundation, moral compass, and value system comes from here, from his head.
Well, then
I
there's
want
my
him to
husband
have
who,
somebody else
yeah.
that he's going to look up to, and not me with the
Yes.
shotgun in my hand if he does something
I was
stupid.
going to say, then there's my husband who would just as soon all boys go away forever. And I think that
I'm with him. He and I belong to the
That's-
same club. No problem.
that's most dads. You and I have talked a lot about, again, this politically correct brigade marching through our schools and every place else, telling us guns are the ultimate evil, and they're teaching this to our elementary school children. And we're not just asserting that, we have evidence. A couple of weeks ago when you were on my show, you talked about a little boy who was told to write down the first thing that came to his mind, and he drew, like all little boys will, a picture of a gun. And which is what they do. Whether you hand them a Barbie or an M&M or a piece of paper to tear up, they're going to make a gun. That's what boys do. And we talked about that the next week. This is so important. They were cloud gazing. Remember, Joe? They were a classroom, rather than learning reading, writing, or arithmetic or Common Core, they were outside looking at the clouds. And one of the little boys, they said, write what you saw in the clouds. And the little boy said, I see a gun. And he got suspended for it. This doesn't stop. This week, a boy twirled a pencil like a gun and got in trouble for it. Joe, really, how far is this going to go?
I don't. When they figure out how to give the little boys drugs to keep them from thinking like little boys, look, everything is a bomb that I have to save when I'm a little boy. Everything is a bad guy that I have to shoot. I have to save every little girl that's in the schoolyard. That's how we think. We don't know any better. This kid was twirling a pencil. Now, if any of you have seen a drummer twirl a drumstick when he's playing, it was similar to that. So he was just spinning it around one finger. And for this, he was whisked away into the principal's office. And when they said, what are you doing? What's going on here? And there's 4 or 5 stories on this now. He just said, look, I was twirling it like you twirl a gun. Not I was twirling it like you twirl a gun to point it at somebody. Now, somebody in the classroom got upset and told the teacher about it. I mean, this is where we're at. Mm-hmm. But this story doesn't stop there. Again, like you said, this is what little boys do. Right? They blow things up. They blow up water balloons. This is what they do. So anyway, the long and the short of it is, now he went for psychiatric care. He had to go for an evaluation because he thought his pencil, or played with his pencil like a gun, and he might have thoughts of doing some damage to the class.
Wow.
This wasn't good enough for the New Jersey courts. They wanted him to go for a more in-depth study, even though the first one showed him with no tendencies towards violence.
Wow. Well, and this is the world we live in. Some of these cases aren't so cut and dried, though. There was a New Jersey court case where a couple named their children after prominent Nazis in history. Tell us what happened there, and what's your perspective on it, Joe?
You know what? We have a problem with this one as conservatives, don't we?
Yeah.
Because we want to give people the right to. You should be able to name your kid Five Finger Louie if that's what you want to call him, right? I mean, we want to allow people to do that. But when we get to these points where it's very distasteful, for the community as a whole, like you said, they want to name their kids after prominent Nazi figures during World War II. We have some people that also want to name their kids Lucifer, Mafia No Fear, Queen Victoria, and one child was going to be called Full Stop. I mean, isn't it funny how we can allow, I didn't write this down, I should have, we can allow our celebrities to name their kids, Moon Unit Zappa? Are
Apple?
we serious?
Apple?
All of a sudden we're upset about this?
Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's a First Amendment right there. I think it's the stupidest thing I ever heard to name your kids after Nazis, but I'm not sure that it's up to the government to decide that. But hey, New York wants to extend voting rights to illegal immigrants. So we have a lot of stupidity going around, don't we?
Well, hey, they're taking our tax money. Why not let them vote to get more tax money, right? I mean, can you see how that works?
I think, though, Joe, this is the thing. I think they're already voting, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
They
pretty
are,
sure
yes,
about
and
that.
often too.
And in California, the things I've heard from folks about the voting of illegals would, I'm sure you've heard it all too, would make people's heads spin. But so why not just make it legal? Why not just go ahead and confirm it with our laws? Then at least we can
You're
feel
right.
like we
They're
have a
already
little
doing it.
control.
And
Exactly.
the polls here were being watched by what they called non-American citizens.
There you
That's
go.
who we're
And
watching
I'm
over our
seeing that
polls.
more and more too. And they don't speak English when I go to the polls. I don't know about you. Joe, we're out of
No.
time, but thank you so much for being on the show. You can find Joe at therealside.com.